Think for yourself. Question authority.
Jess and I we had just gotten back from, I guess, Australia, New Zealand. And it was funny, we had about a week break before we were starting a big American thing, Well, it's like, actually, when we're doing about a week or two of shows and then taking a break and then going out for the big run. But yeah, when we got back on that little break, we heard that some kid had it at our show in Auckland. And all those shows over there, it was a little bit scary because there's GA floor, so all the people were moshing and everything. So God knows how many people got infected at that last gig that we did over there. But we got back, and then it really hit the fan when we just started to do some Northwest shows, and then we did 2 of our gigs, and then the last 3 of the 5 that were on that little mini run up there in the Northwest got canceled. So we just came home, and that was kind of the end of the deal. A couple of our crew guys got infected and stuff, but we've been fortunate enough, at least all the band members made it out alive at this point. And but here we are now, just stuck in limbo. We're supposed to be starting our biggest run of the album cycle like in a week or something, I guess. I don't know. I can't remember the exact dates, but it's all canceled
I think
now.
it's today. It was supposed to be our first show today.
Oh, I knew it was coming up, but now there we go. Here we are for God knows how long. So we're just making the best of it.
It was really weird because it seemed like it was a real chain reaction that suddenly started to happen. People started canceling. I remember we were in the Northwest, and then I think Pearl Jam canceled a tour that hadn't even started yet, so people started preempting what was going to happen. And then the promoters started shutting down basketball games. Danny and I actually went to the last NBA game in the building that we played the next night. We were in Portland. That was the last show we did. So it was hard to understand what was a kind of a reaction and what was being done for the right reasons, kind of thing, because stuff just started falling down around you. So we just we were literally stranded in Boise in Idaho. That was the last place we ended up. We just drove to Boise and sat there and just kind of watched everything close down, and then sat there for a day or two. And even the streets got quiet in Boise, if that's even possible, And then we flew home from there. It just all it happened so quickly. Like Billy said, it was kind of happening. It felt like it was following us around, and all the walls just kind of in like this. And then there was nothing left to do apart from go home. So it was a bit of a confusing time.
I'm sitting around my house and I think this is the longest I have actually stayed at home since I was probably 12 years old or something like that, maybe even earlier, so it's pretty nuts. But the timing was really good for me too, because I just had another son born like 2 weeks ago. So it's
Oh, congrats.
I'm in heaven right now, It couldn't have worked out better. This is my second. Yeah. I've got a 4-year-old and this guy, It's worked out really well for me. And I'm just here playing on my practice pad and keeping my wrist moving and trying to, stay abreast of things going on as much as I can. And I got a new drum set right at the end of our last tour. So I'm going to be heading into the studio and putting that all together and work out a new rig for the next tour and just kind of keep things progressing however I can and practicing. So that's, whatever I can do to make the time useful, I am. For Justin and I, now that we've, been on the road playing the stuff off our new record that we finished this year. The conversations we always have, if anything, every day before we go on stage, it's like kind of trying to figure out how to, it's just a feeling that happens when you're doing that recording, and then our time is slipping and pushing and pulling and stuff, and so to get it to feel that natural every night is kind of a challenge. So we end up talking, well, hey, like when it gets to this chorus, should we try to go up maybe 1 BPM here or 2 BPM there, or like when it hits this part, you know, and just long as we have a conversation about it, it makes us aware of it. It helps the groove a lot just to, okay, we're going to lay back on this little section to get the feeling just right. So it's pumping, you know, and that's the conversations we have more than anything else about execution on stage and recreating the stuff that's on the album.
Just to follow up on what Danny said, when we record our albums, we don't use a click at all in the first place. Like the drum tracks get recorded first. We've rehearsed the songs for, obviously, as everyone says, 13 years or whatever it was. They have a natural flow to them. Like some parts, they're different time signatures. We've tried before with the click. It just doesn't work. Some parts naturally speed up a bit. There's a drum solo in this section. It needs to get exciting. It needs to almost fall apart and get out of control. So we just let that happen when we record. I mean, we try and reel in parts that are losing the plot, but we basically let it be what it is. And then for my benefit and Adam's benefit, we actually map a tempo map to those drums sometimes that we have now recorded. So there'll be, there's going to be long sections that are a little more ambient that are going to be hard for me to follow. I mean, I'm not able to keep up with Danny in the live situation to track all my bass parts at the same time or have the necessarily the sound that I want to keep forever. So I do end up redoing my bass parts, but I'm going to have to follow something where there's no kick drum, let's say, or no snare. So we do that in a lot of sections, and we'll like artificially lay in a tempo, a click that stretches in some parts. So basically that's for my benefit, to be able to play where there's nothing really to follow, But then the result is, once we got the track done, it's kind of like maintain that feel to it. So we go into the live situation, the songs are quite familiar in that way. There are sections where it does speed up a little bit towards the end of, the drum solo. And I'll my monitor mix is very important to me, to be able to just follow those little nuances in Danny's drumming that I'm familiar with, but I need to be really locked in with. I'm like, okay, here it comes, this is the flurry, and I'm just holding down a groove. I'll basically, I'll preempt that a little bit, so I arrive right on the downbeat of the next section, which perhaps has a different feel to it and even slows down a little bit, but I'm not suddenly slowing down. I'm already preempting it, from just being used to how those songs, ebb and flow, basically. So yeah, and in the big arenas and stuff, I just I know some people think I'm crazy, but I can't do the in-ear monitors. I have to have a live situation around me. I have big cabinets behind me, and I have big monitors in front of me and to the side of me. And my approach is, as long as it doesn't get to a level where it hurts. I like to be able to hear Danny really clearly when we're playing live, almost like we're in the room just playing together, and everything else smatters on top. But obviously really important for me and him to have that connection.
When I grew up, I had a lot of classical music and big band stuff playing around me from my dad. So, I mean, I was always trying to find the path that I was looking for was a little more snobby, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but I just was always into all the prog bands like Yes and Genesis and all that stuff. So that was what I wanted to play, things that were a little more complicated, I guess. So I always took lessons and then played in the big band in high school. And then when I got it to go to college, and I played in the orchestra and the big band and university level also. So it just kept snowballing and kept going forward in that way. And when I was ever playing in bands, I just never wanted to be the weak link. And, like Justin and Adam, when they come up with some weird thing in weird time, and they're not really so educated about it, but it allows them just this freedom, I think, to come up with the weirdest ideas. And I don't want to belittle it. I just try to go with it. And if you have a vocabulary that you've worked on by studying all these different possibilities and Indian music, classical music, whatever, fusion stuff, then you're prepared to do the song justice or the riff justice when those moments happen. So I've just always wanted to be prepared for any musical moment that would happen. So I try to, keep studying and keep abreast of anything I can, and listening a lot. I just try to listen to as many things possible and a lot of different influences from all over like I said, so I can do the songs justice. That's my goal. I think that's more important maybe for a drummer to do that than maybe some other instrument. If you're composing the thing, it's kind of your idea is set there, but I just want to make sure I can take it as far as I can take it and expound upon it in however I can. I've never really written anything out like that. Sometimes if we get stuck, then I'll actually count and go, hey, what time is this? And a lot of time we just kind of feel it. We don't really even count it out because it's more of a feeling thing. But as the songs develop and we want to find more possibilities, we'll go, okay, well, this is in 21, so we can play 3 7s or, 7 3s or, different combinations of, well, that's Justin's department.
I actually sent a riff to Danny the other night. We were talking about doing this, and I was just making sure I could actually play bass. I thought I better pick it up and practice for a while. I came up with a riff, and it sounded really interesting to me and quite odd, the timing of it. It's just a thing that cycles around. But I sent it to Dan, and I was like, I haven't even tried to count this out. Do you know what it is? He's like, let's not count it. Let's jam it first. Let's not even think about it. I don't know, just keep the possibilities of it alive until you have to kind of, once you've settled on it, then you can kind of figure out a way of explaining it, perhaps for the guitar player or the singer. But yeah, when we come together as Tool, we try not to overdevelop our individual ideas. So we just come in with a pile of building blocks and share them with each other to see what the other person receives from that information. Like how do they hear it? I mean, we wrote a song, like I guess it could be our pop song, The Pop. And I played the riff to Danny, and he heard the downbeat in a completely different place to me, like 1, 2, 3, like it came in it changed the whole thing. But like now we have that option as well, because I never heard it that way. So we just really try and keep it open until we've finally put it all together.
Well, I try to warm up at least a half hour before I go on every night just to get the blood flowing. I'm trying to remember. I think it was an old John S. Pratt rudimental solo.
That's what it was. It's red. I think.
Yeah. It's a pretty intermediate level thing. It's not real advanced, but it's great to warm up with because it just goes through pretty much all the 26 rudiments, and it's a good thing to do for me anyway.
I was going to say about my tone. I mean, it's really, in a way, the repertoire is quite small. Like I pick up the bass. I'm sure everyone else feels a little bit this way. The first thing you do, it tends to be the same thing you always do. When you just pick up and you just start jamming or feeling around an instrument. I don't have this huge repertoire where I can play all these different styles, or I even play with a lot of different people. I'd like to expand that, and I do as the years go on. I try and play with different artists, but I think a lot of the tone comes from concentrating on what I'm good at, and it's quite simple. You know what I mean? It's not. I mean, yeah, there's like time signatures and all that, which I don't really understand. That's just what I hear. But the actual tone is what I'm, as Victor said, it's what I'm comfortable with, and perhaps some of the patterns that I'm familiar with and I rely on kind of crop up again and again. And I'm not going to pretend to be, this guy that could just break out into anything new at any moment. So I just I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm good at and really focus on honing that and developing that and the little minuscule details of each note I play, you know what I mean? And I can hear this one note that's just not ringing out enough, or I keep wanting to lead it into the next note in a better way. There's little things that happen in recording. But I mean, I think the fact is, as someone else said, the little muscles in your wrist, it's the weight of your bones as an individual. It's the height of your instrument. It's the way your spine curves, your the thickness of your strap. It's all these things that go into the way that you play, and you found a sort of a, as Vic said, a little comfort zone. And then, you know, the people you're playing with, the band you're in, you're trying to, as Dave said, you're trying to fit in to the frequencies that are around you. And there's a certain amount of compromise you have to make. I always notice when I sit on my own at home, I like playing I have a few old Fender P basses, and I think they sound beautiful, like compared to my wah that I play in the band. They sound really musical, you know, but if I play them with the band, they don't really work. You know, they kind of disappear. They get swallowed up by all those other frequencies. So the tone that I have in Tool is in a lot of ways is crafted by necessity. You know, it's like it's playing the bass parts, doing the role of the bass player, but it's also fitting in with the sound of Danny's drums, the tone of Adam's guitar, and the voice of my own making. You know, it comes from a lot of those factors. And I think each time, it's funny, each time we do a record, you want to try and experiment a little bit and try all these different amps and see what new technologies come out, see if you can make the thing that you hear, that you want to hear, see if you can make it even closer to that, if you can capture it, record it closer to what you're hoping to hear. And each time, even if it's after 13 years, I went through every amp, I went through every new preamp, I went through every different type of strings, and I came right back to the same ones I'd used before because they sound good with these guys, you know, and in a lot of cases, other tones will be more appropriate. So we all hit the string in a different, you know, the length of the string is different for all of us, depending on where our right hand hits, even if we're fretting on the same note. You know, the weight of attack, I guess those things, you know, just become ingrained in your body, you know, and they're recognizable. It's like my pedal board is basically kind of like a keyboard, you know, with different modules, you know, in a specific series. And I rely on knowing exactly what's going to happen when I have 3 of them on in a certain series. You know, it's going to make a different type of feedback if I switch them around.
Well, I tracked a record with Mitch Foreman and Jimmy Earl and Doug Webb and some guys. And we just kind of went in one afternoon and recorded 11 songs, like in about 2 hours, 3 hours. So we're mixing that right now. So we're going to try to get that out soon. It's kind of some straight ahead stuff and kind of fusion-y things. There's a couple Miles tunes and things like that on there. So that was kind of fun to do. But
you know, I'm just doing some projects with people from, I guess you could say, completely different genres of music. Throwing some ideas around with Peter Murphy, actually current Bauhaus. I think they were on tour just recently. They got cut off as well. But we have a mutual friend, you know, just through management stuff. So we're just like bouncing around some ideas, which we've been doing the last few weeks. It's been really fun. He's out in Istanbul. So it's so cool how you can just transcend that whole distance thing. I have a friend in Poland as well. I did an album a long time ago. The project was called MT Void. We did one record, and he's basically you know, he sings in Polish and he makes beats, and it's a whole different type of thing than Tool. Very conducive to doing online. You know, he sends me something, I play on it, send it back. He changes it, sends it back. I put a guitar in it. It's very, it's not the way, I think someone was talking about how great it is to be in the room with the band. Dave, you were. I've kind of had enough of that for a few years. Like we were really hard at it for several years with Tool. So I'm actually enjoying the opposite of that and doing some things, you know, being a little more isolated. You know, I'm right. And the other thing is, I don't know if this is my piece of advice, but someone asked me the other day, my friend, I just texted him, see how he's doing. And I was telling him about some collaborations, and he said, do you get asked to do a lot of collaborations? And I was like, not really, to be honest. You know, they pretty much come from people you run into or people's brothers or mothers or sisters, you know, or whoever. It's just kind of what crops up in your every day-to-day life. And so it's kind of important just to respect the fact that those are the things that you're going to get to do, and not have too many greater aspirations beyond that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to work with whoever. It's probably not going to happen. They're probably not even going to get on with you, you know? So it's just kind of the things that arrive in front of you are fundamentally important to follow and at least check out and pursue. So that's really what I try and do while I'm at home here.
I'm hoping during this downtime, as soon as we're able, maybe we'll get together, Justin and I and Adam, maybe start hashing out some new tool stuff. In the meantime, maybe try to write another EP since we're down and we can't do anything else. I'm just kind of, waiting on that, waiting around. But that's all I've really got going on. I'm going to have to run, you guys, so I'm going to use that as my sign off because I have to get to an appointment by 12:30 in Santa Monica. Cool. So thank you so much. All right, bye.
We'll catch up on the other side.
Everyone.